Humans have remained the unit of measure for our built environment, school of thought, and all other digressions. Everything is based on our scale of comprehension. We considered ourselves at the center of the universe at one point. Much has changed since then, and we understand how minuscule we are in the cosmos. But on Earth, we hold a different authority altogether. We are still at the center, just of the ecosystem of our own little planet. Through this anthropocentric view, we've collectively isolated ourselves from all other circles of existence by declaring them separate from us. For us, we are the constant. We are the point of reference. We are now strangers and exiles to the ecosystem we inhabit and claim to rule. While some may consider this an act of hubris, we are in fact bound to the limitations of our senses. We can only perceive and understand as much as our biology allows. So we personify non-human entities like the ocean, the moon, and death to be able to relate to them, to understand them, even romanticize them. To bring the ethereal, unscalable, or invisible to a form we can fathom. In doing so, we acknowledge that we are a part of a system beyond the collective of Homo sapiens, a system of unfathomable scale that spans from quarks to quasars. As we study all aspects of life and non-life through a relative viewpoint, it is perhaps fruitful to position ourselves in the space-time scale amongst all the forms an atom can take. We are one with all that goes on around us. As Simone Weil said, the future is made of the same stuff as the present. In Hinduism, we believe we come from the cosmic ocean, and after we've completed our journey on the mortal realm, we may flow back into it as the eternal cycle continues. The wheel of time turns, allowing each atom agency to form the building blocks of our world. Death is never the end, but the beginning of a new cycle of creation. The unifying factor for all the witnesses of this interlaced existence is the process of senescence. Everything living, inorganic or social, declines after reaching its optimum development. Life, which by nature promises progress and evolution, already carries destruction in its creation, not only of the structures that preceded, but also of its own demise. Death is a biological and social imperative that all things must face. It is an inherent characteristic of all that exists. One must give up their current form to transform into something new. The ebb and flow of transmuted energy is a constant of the physical realm. The change of entropy is the cause of all that exists, and we exist in that precise moment of change, which for us may feel like eternity. The whole universe is the result of a vacuum fluctuation, originating from what we would call quantum nothingness. Creation ex nihilo is not the way of nature. We may theorize that if there is an after, there must be a before. Both ends of the spectrum lie too far away from our current level of comprehension. The structure of our reality becomes clearer when we consider it as a palimpsest containing multitudes of atoms creating physicality as we know it, coming together to form heterogeneous moments of existence in the fluctuation of the cosmos. Each of us carries a legacy that traces back to quantum nothingness. It is encoded and stored within the atoms that consist of our mortal form. The challenge is the retrieval of this memory to inform us of our true cosmic lineage. Thus, our present is ephemeral, divided into three terms: that which was, which is, and which will be. Contextualizing the present as an ephemeral era allows us to consider these realities as elastic, exotic, tolerant, and polymorphous. To understand this ephemeral and liminal existence of the layered conglomerate, we may start by defining a unit of measure for permanence with space and time at the helm, giving an object the legitimacy of a tangible physical form. However, even the ethereal adds dimension to permanence. The tension between the two realms of tangibility strengthens when we realize that these two aren't binary. Much like the flow of the universe, these two worlds are fluid and interact to create a sense of permanent existence. Through these interactions, the longevity and legacy of an object are felt, understood, and experienced. These exchanges happen over time and space, the scale of which differs for each individual field of view. To observe these interactions, we begin by creating the scale of measurement for the purposes of the study. Derived by studying realities at varying powers of 10, creating a Rolodex of objects within each range. These spatial measurements were then used to determine the associated time spans and range for the study. We begin at the range of the invisible, from 10 to the power minus 35 meters to 10 to the power minus 9 meters. It includes structures that are integral but invisible to the human experience. Moving on to the biological range from 10 to the power minus 8 meters to 10 to the power minus 1 meters. This range includes perceivable objects that are separated to function at a scale unbothered by human hands. We then enter the human range from 1 meters to 10 to the power 6 meters. This range is the main operating grounds for human interaction, socio-economic thoroughfare, and perceivable experiences. We finally end our study at the cosmic range from 10 to the power 7 meters to 10 to the power 12 meters. This range is defined by the enormity of its scale and its inevitable influence on all forms of existence. Overlaying all the ranges, we get an interlaced map for the purposes of the study. Each of these ranges consists of a plethora of actions and impacts spanning lifetimes of a second to trillions of years. Studying a transect across them may help us understand the interconnected nature of existence. For example, in a dive into the range of 10 meters, we study the life cycle of the mighty whale. Starting life as a baby, a whale remains in this form for a year, followed by adolescence for around 9 years of its life, finally reaching the peak of its development. For the next 60 to 70 years, a whale continues to give rise to the next generation every 2 to 3 years, giving birth to a new cycle of life and death 20 to 30 times. Throughout its lifetime, whale excrement provides a vital food source to phytoplanktons, the microscopic foundations of the oceanic food web. They capture large amounts of CO2 and convert it to usable cellular energy, transferring billions of metric tons of carbon from the atmosphere to the bottom of the ocean every year, reducing its environmental impact. Even in death, a whale continues to serve the ocean. When a whale falls, mobile scavengers such as lobsters, hackfish, and sleeper sharks feed on the giant's corpse. After 11 years, when the flesh is devoured, bone settlers such as seaworms and snails enjoy the rich nutrients for the next 20 years. When all is gone, bacteria visits the whale, producing sulfide as a byproduct, feeding many other organisms. 120 years later, when a whale can produce no more substance, it provides a foundation for a reef to grow. This marine architecture thrives and continues to grow over thousands of years. The gentle giant's body comes from the ocean and returns to it, its impact lasting longer in death than in life, presenting an intriguing transect of a whale's existence. Another mighty giant tells a different story. Our sun, source of all life as we know, goes through a series of transformations in its lifetime, from its birth to its death. The sun was forged over 1 million years from a stellar nebula. It formed its glowing orb as it grew and continues to do so. The sun stays in this stage for 5 billion years. All we know of Earth and the life it birthed exists within this phase at 2.2 billion years. The sun will eventually turn into a red giant, a form it'll keep for another 5 billion years as it grows and feeds on everything in its way, including our planet. In its death, the sun turns into a planetary nebula for 1 billion years, after which, for 2 billion years, it will stay as a white dwarf, losing its light and strength slowly. Eventually, the sun turns into a black dwarf for another 1 billion years, losing any semblance of the warmth and life it created for its children. The inevitable process decreed by the cosmic cycle, the sun's journey as a star of life ends with it destroying its own stellar system. All atoms of our physical form are promised to the red giant. The objects observed are not limited to their own respective cycles. The interactions between them give great meaning to their existence and perhaps may even be dependent on one another. The sun's impact on the whale's life is clearer to measure, from heat waves sunburning the whales to the question of their very existence without the sun. A whale's role in our intricate functions is a given, and its decline resulting in catastrophic disruptions to the ecosystem. But its larger impact on the Sun as an independent entity might be something to explore in the distant future as we move to a potential T2 society that can harness the energy of the Sun directly with the Dyson sphere configuration. But the whale's scale may be too tiny to disrupt the Sun's life cycle substantially. We may argue that each group defined has its range of influence, with the group sitting at the extreme ends of the scale having greater agency and impact on others. The invisible guides all that exists, while the biological and human might be limited to interacting with only each other for the most part. The cosmic may be able to meaningfully impact all other ranges up until we reach the invisible. Hence, the true agency of the invisible becomes clearer, a world just as foreign to us as the void of space. Much of our reality is left for exploration, but reality is experience, and experience is mostly imagination. Through these transects, we may be able to tune into the scheme of the cosmic cycle and imagine the interlaced existence within. All we need to do is be willing to see.